We still have DPS and sheriff's deputy presence out there to help the people who are coming back into their homes, and we don't want to clog up that area any more than we have to. But as of now, Highway 21 will be open for through traffic, and we're glad to be able to get that open. Now, as Rich mentioned, we're expecting, and the National Weather Service has predicted, has forecast, a shift in the winds about 5:30 tonight before dark, and that overnight and into tomorrow we're probably going to have some pretty strong gusts and some pretty strong sustained winds in most of Bastrop County. So you're going to see some fire. You're going to see some smoke tomorrow. You're going to see the smoke plume move in a different direction. It'll be headed to the south rather than to the north. But I assure you that we will have firefighters and first responders on duty all night long tonight and all day long tomorrow. And if anything happens, they will be right there to respond to it. And we will keep a close watch on this fire for several days to come until every bit of it is out and we can call it 100% contained. So with that, I'll entertain any questions, and also if you have any questions about fire ops, we'll take those as well. Rudy?
Judge, is this lifting of the evacuation then a qualified lifting, that it's like, things can change at a drop of a hat?
Well, great pun, Rudy, but we, of course, as we've already said, the weather can change in Bastrop County immediately, but we're pretty confident, and I think the National Weather Service is pretty confident about the forecast. And so, no, it's not, at this time we're able to release the evacuation order and let people back in their homes without any concern for having to reverse that order. We think things will be just fine.
Judge, can you talk about how big the fire is in the containment?
Yes, I'll let Rich address that, but again, we're taking another look at the map and the footprint. We don't think it changed today, and as if this morning we were reporting 830 acres, I believe, that had been burned. I did have, thanks to Carter Smith and the Texas Parks and Wildlife, I and Mayor Schrader had an opportunity to get up in a helicopter today and fly the perimeter of the burn scar, and I was very pleased at what I saw from the air. That although we can't say that the fire is contained, I can tell you from layman's language that the fire is certainly under control at this time. And the firefighters are there, they know where the hot spots are, and they're working on those as we go. Rich, would you like to add anything else to as far as the size of the fire, or what we might expect in the future on that?
Okay, yes, sir. Again, we did not see any growth or movement on the fire outside of the containment line, so the acreage remains the same as last reported. Our percent containment has gone up. We've mapped that, and what we need to look at is how wide and how strong those lines are for the fire coming in contact with that. So until we get a good assessment on that, we do not want to increase that containment until we're assured of that containment. Yes,
Rich,
sir.
Explain for everyone what y'all are doing to shore up that western and southern line, because that's what, as Judge Poppy said, people are going to see the shift in cloud direction, and they're going to get worried.
Yep. Really good question, Rudy. So we've increased the width of the line with our mechanized equipment. We've had engine apparatus on those lines all day, mopping up the hot spots along those lines. We're working aviation resources to increase the depth of the coolness of those fuels interior, and then we'll have additional resources during that wind shift staffed on the line in case we see any embers that are blowing across the line tonight.
With lessons learned, are you looking at changing some of the protocols for having these kinds of prescribed burns?
That I'm not prepared to answer, because I'm here in a suppression role, so I can take any questions on suppression. There's always lessons learned anytime we engage on a wildland fire, so whatever lessons we do learn, we'll definitely implement those. So.
And as far as
Judge, you were talking about an investigation into this,
Yes.
This morning.
Thank you. Yes, Fred. Carter Smith has told me that there will be a full investigation into the incident here, how it developed, what the cause of the fire might have been, and he's working with his staff on how that investigation is going to be initiated as early as next week. We're not going to put a deadline on it. We want them to have an opportunity to turn over every stone and make sure that every question is asked and answered before we come back with with the findings and recommendations out of those findings. But I'm confident that Texas Parks and Wildlife are committed to doing that, and I'll hold their feet to the fire on it, pardon the pun. But and I know that as a partner, Carter Smith will do what he says he will do, and we will let the public know what the findings are. This is anytime we're impacting the life and safety of our citizens, they have a right to know what we found out, what went wrong, and what we're going to do to stop it from happening again. And that will be made known to the public. So I assure you that we will see that done. Any other questions that you might?
Judge, we heard from some residents who expressed some frustration when it came to communication and the speed at which they were receiving updates. How do you feel about the way that went?
Communication is always a challenge when you're in a disaster response mode, but we've tried to hold regular press conferences, just as this one. And with social media, we have continued to put out information through our Office of Emergency Management website, and I know Parks and Wildlife and other social media outlets have done the same. You know, you can never answer every question, but we have tried to be responsive to the questions that were pertinent and that would be of useful information to the public. So that's sort of the way we handle that.
Another
Yes,
concern
ma'am.
was, I'm sorry, the location of the Elgin Center. Why in Elgin? And why not somewhere closer to Bastrop?
That's a great question. As you know, after the 2011 fire, we didn't have very many places in Bastrop County that we could evacuate people to after disasters. Because of some grant money that we've got from FEMA, we were able to help the city of Elgin, the city of Bastrop build shelters, and we were able to help the city of Smithfield expand their shelter. When this incident happened, we called on the city of Bastrop to open their shelter to help our firefighters and first responders, give them a place to go shower, lay down and take a rest and clean up and be back on the fire line. Rather than sending these residents all the way around to Smithfield, the next closest reasonable place to put them was in Elgin, and I called Mayor Ramirez up there, and he was very happy. He and Tom Mattis, the city manager, very happy to open that center, staff it immediately. They got it stood up in less than 2 hours, as a matter of fact, and we were able to house 11 residents there last night in a very short period of time. So we work together when we come into responding to fires, and I was very proud of the way Bastrop and Elgin responded in this situation. Yes, ma'am.
For evacuations, those residents that aren't cleared yet to go back inside their homes, is there a timeline for when they would be able to?
Yes, ma'am. The residents in the Pine Hills Estate area can plan to go back into their homes at 6 o'clock this evening.
But for the ones that are the other side of town that can't yet?
Everybody else on the other side of Highway 21, they can go back in immediately.
Oh, immediately.
Yes, ma'am. That our lifting of that evacuation order is effective as we speak. Yes, sir.
Is there an explanation for under control versus contained?
Well, there is. As a layman and not a professional firefighter, I can use the word controlled from a layman's standpoint. Contained means something entirely different, and Mr. Rich can come define for you what contained means. But as I flew around the fire this morning and looking down on it, I saw no active flame. I saw a lot of firefighters who are putting out the hot spots, smoldering tree roots and that sort of thing. I saw bulldozers widening those barrier lines all around the footprint. And so from my standpoint as a public official, I had to smile at that and say, it looks to me like that fire is under control. It's not out of control, in other words, anymore, like it was yesterday at this time. It is under control, and we have our hands around it. We have a line around it, and that meant a lot to me, and I wanted to share that with my public. Now, Rich, you might define the difference between under control and under containment.
Okay. Thank you. So in the wildland fire response world, when we look at containment on the fire line, that means that we have lines around the fire, and under the current and forecasted weather conditions and fuel conditions, there will be no threat to that line. So that's why that containment goes up slowly, even though you may not see as much smoke and whatnot. It's because we're looking at what threats under the fire environment will threaten the line. Control, on the other hand, is after we've patrolled that area that's been contained, we're not seeing any visible smokes for a 24-hour period, and then we look at that incident being controlled. Thank you.
Thank you. I did want to point out that as a part of the ongoing operations, you will see Black Hawk helicopters with water bags under them, helping out with the hot spots that are still within the footprint of the fire. And I want the public to know that when you see those choppers flying and dumping water, that's part of the plan to completely put out this fire and to make sure there's no hot spots left. So don't worry about it tomorrow or the next day as you see choppers flying around. That's part of the plan to put this thing to bed. Any other questions that we haven't addressed so far?
Do we have an estimate of how many families have had to evacuate?
The question was how many families have had to evacuate. The properties that we announced yesterday for evacuation was about 250 homes, but before all of them were evacuated, we were able to reduce that down to about 150 homes because the power hadn't been turned off and the progress of the fire was stopped. And so we were allowed part of Circle D and KC Estates not to evacuate. So this, as of today, then there's still about 150 homes that we have now released now, and at 6 o'clock this evening we'll release, and those people can come back into their homes. And we're very happy to announce that. Anything else?
Judge, yesterday you mentioned planes with retardant were flying here from Abilene. I recall after the Hidden Pines fire, there were going to be planes stationed at ABIA for this exact purpose. Why didn't those planes come? Instead they were coming from Abilene.
Rich, would you like to talk about the large tankers, and how that was managed this time?
Okay, great. So the large air tankers that we have that we utilize in state, and across the nation, those are our national assets, so they can be moved across the country wherever there's fire danger. Over the last several months, we've had fire danger in the western part of the state, the Panhandle, and the Cross Plains areas. Also in New Mexico and Oklahoma. So geographically, that tanker base in Abilene is where we place those tankers. Flight time from Abilene to Bastrop to this fire is about 25 minutes. As the fire season and fire increases in severity and the drought, as that moves east, then we would look at moving the base and populating air tankers at that base when those conditions happen. We are looking at not populating the Austin Bergstrom base with air tankers, but that base is set up for retardant and everything, so in the future we can reload or pre-position air tankers there based on the continued drying conditions that we're seeing in the hill country and further to the east. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy, for that question, because that gives me an opportunity to thank the City of Austin for allowing us to have that recharge station there at ABIA, and John Cyrier has done great work in getting all those arrangements made, and that facility will be available immediatally for further fire response in this region of Texas. Weather forecast says, I believe it's El Nino, where it's going to be drier and maybe warmer than normal, and so we wanted to be sure that we have the resources that we need right here. Anything else we need to talk about today? I want you to get the message out about the evacuation orders being lifted in the stages that we announced, and again, I want to say what a great partnership it's been with everyone who has joined us here to help respond to this disaster and to get this fire under control. And we will get it completely contained as soon as possible. And thank you all for your interest.
Judge, just one more question.
One more question,
So
Andy.
a lot of residents that have been affected by this are laying blame on the Texas Parks and Wildlife in carrying out a prescribed burn when we were having 30-mile-per-hour wind gusts. Other local officials said on an alert to don't do any outdoor burning because of the higher potential for wildfire danger. What do you say to these residents?
Under certain climatic conditions, like we had last Friday night and Saturday, the Texas Department of Environmental Quality, Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, does not recommend any outdoor burning. We did not have a burn ban, a county-ordered burn ban, but even if you don't have a burn ban and the wind's blowing 30 miles an hour, don't light a fire outside, okay? That's partly common sense, but if you need to be told not to light a fire, that's why we had that red flag warning last Saturday. We did not issue a burn ban order. As you know, we don't issue burn ban orders just on weather forecasts. There have to be certain soil conditions, ground fuel conditions, and a KBI, a Keach Byram index, around 600. And right now in Bastrop County, that KBI index is about 250. So we're a long ways from the threshold of announcing a burn ban countywide. But when the wind blows at 35 miles an hour, don't burn. So we didn't have a burn ban. Parks and Wildlife, they do burn bans all over the state. They've done this for years and years. They're the very best at it. They know what they're doing. They had as Carter Smith announced earlier, they always have a burn boss who studies all of the criteria, and it's done according to a certain set of criteria that are approved by the National Fire Institute. So it wasn't done lightly. It wasn't done, without full planning and forethought. But as I said yesterday, sometimes the weather changes in Texas, and it changes pretty quickly, and nobody can predict which way the wind's going to blow or how strong it's going to blow over a long period of time. We're not talking about placing any blame. There will be a full investigation done, and that investigation will tell us what happened, what went wrong, how we can prevent it from happening again, and what lessons we learned out of it. And I expect that to be a full and comprehensive report. That will answer the questions of our citizens. And by the way, I fully understand our citizens' frustrations. You'd think of all places in Texas, the place that you'd want to be the most cautious about indoor outdoor burning would be Bastrop County for all the things that we've been through in the last 10 years, Fred. But the fact is that all precautions were taken, and yet Mother Nature played a trick on us. And we have to live with that. We have to learn from that, and that's exactly what we're going to do. I can promise you that. All right? All right, folks, thank you all for being here. I appreciate you. Be safe out there. Take care of each other, and talk to you soon.
Yes, so I figured I'd wait until the camera's turned off. We most likely won't hear from our judge or state level leadership again today, but myself, the other public information officers will be available. I'm thinking like a 6 o'clock. Do we feel good about a 6 o'clock? Or does that work for? Okay, so not sure what information will change between now and then, but we'll be whoever wants to be. It'll be more tactical, more operational. Any statistics that have changed, we'll be here at 6 o'clock. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Claro.